Hey everybody. When I bought this excavator, I thought greasing it was going to be the easy part. But I have to be honest with you, choosing the right kind of grease turned out to be really confusing. Just like you wouldn't grab any old motor oil off the shelf of your garage and throw it in the engine, it's really important that you don't grab any old grease and throw it in your machine either. The differences in the grease does make a difference depending on what machine you're using it for. And if you're like me, when you first got the machine, you said, big deal, I'll go get some grease, I'll order it from Amazon. But when you got to Amazon, it was rather confusing. So when you go to Amazon and you type in tube grease, you are met with a ton of different selections for tube grease. You have ultra heavy duty red grease. You have Moly grease, high pressure grease, high temperature grease, grease for water applications and marine applications, all-purpose grease, and many, many different brands. It becomes very confusing, and when I got to this screen, I actually couldn't make a choice of which was the best grease for my machine. So I think in order for us to understand grease and pick the right one, we need to go back to school and find out what exactly is in grease. So what is grease exactly? So let's look at the basic components of all grease. First is the base oil. This is the heart of any grease. It usually makes up 70 to 90% of what's in that tube. Think of it like the engine oil trapped inside a sponge. It's what actually does the lubricating once the grease gets squeezed between two metal parts. There are two main types of base oil that are used: mineral oil, which is refined from crude, or they can use synthetic oil. Now let's talk about the thickener. This is what gives grease its solid, buttery texture. The thickener acts like a sponge or soap fiber network that holds the base oil in place until it's needed. The most common types are lithium complex and calcium sulfonate. Lithium complex grease is an all-around workhorse, great for most excavators, and calcium sulfonate resists water and extreme pressure even better, but it is more expensive. Now let's talk about the additives in grease. This is where the magic happens. These are chemical enhancers that give grease special properties. For heavy equipment, you'll see things like EP for extreme pressure. Those give protection under load. Anti-wear agents that guard your pins and bushings. Rust and oxidation inhibitors to keep everything clean inside. And of course, molybdenum disulfide, or Moly, that forms a solid film between metal surfaces. Now let's take a deep dive on the different types of thickeners. The first is lithium complex. It's the workhorse of thickeners. This is your all-around champ. It handles high temperatures, good water resistance, and is compatible with a ton of equipment. It's a go-to for excavator pins, trailers, and just about everything else in your shop. If your grease gun only holds one type, lithium complex is a safe bet. Now we have polyurea. This is the long life specialist. This is a different animal than other greases. It's not soap-based like lithium. It's a synthetic thickener that resists oxidation and lasts a long time. Manufacturers often use it in sealed bearings or electric motor applications where you can't re-grease often. It's super stable, but be aware that it does not mix well with other greases, so don't blend it unless you know they're compatible. Then you have calcium sulfonate. This is the heavy-duty defender of greases. So this grease is made for high shock loads, water, and corrosion resistance. It's got excellent extreme pressure properties built right into the thickener itself, so it doesn't rely on a bunch of chemical additives. If your excavator spends a ton of time in mud or under a power washer, then calcium sulfonate may be worth the extra price that you pay. Now let's look at the different types of additives placed in grease. First up, anti-wear additives. These coat the metal surfaces and prevent direct contact when the oil film gets thin. They keep pins, bushings, and bearings from scuffing, especially during startup or when you miss grease intervals. Then we have rust and corrosion inhibitors. These keep moisture, oxygen, and salt from attacking your metal parts. If you work around a lot of water or dig in wet clay, these additives are what keeps the insides from rusting solid. Then we have our oxidation inhibitors. So grease is just oil trapped in a thickener, and that oil can break down over time, especially in heat. These additives slow that process so your grease doesn't dry out, harden, and turn into that old nasty crud that you find in old fittings. Then we have extreme pressure additives. These are kind of your shock absorbers. So when you've got pins that take a pounding, like your boom, arm, or bucket, you need extreme pressure additives. These activate under load to form a protective film that takes the hit instead of your steel. That's what keeps your bushings from welding themselves together when you overload them. And finally, we have Moly. So Moly, or molybdenum disulfide, is a solid lubricant that plates onto the metal surfaces, creating a backup layer when that grease gets squeezed out. Even if there's almost no grease left, that Moly film is still in there, protecting the metal. Now let's talk about the NLGI rating. It's on every tube of grease that you buy. Normally, you'll see NLGI number 2 on your tube of grease. So what does that actually mean? NLGI stands for the National Lubricating Grease Institute, and that number tells you how thick or stiff the grease is. It runs from 000, which is almost liquid, all the way up to number 6, which is about the consistency of a block of cheese. Most of the time, number 2 is what you'll see for construction and automotive. That's about like peanut butter. Pumps easily in a grease gun and it stays where you put it. If you're working in super cold weather, you might go thinner, maybe number 0 or number 1. If you're in extreme heat or open gears, you might go thicker, number 3 or more. But for excavator, pins, and bushings, number 2 is the sweet spot. So here's the bottom line. For excavators and probably your skid steers, choose a good quality lithium complex grease with Moly. It'll provide that critical protection your machine needs against the harsh elements that you're going to put it through. This grease can withstand shock load, extreme pressure, dirt, water, and if it should get shoved out of those critical joints where your pins and your bushings are, that Moly will provide that additional layer of protection and keep those metal surfaces sliding against each other because the Moly adheres to that metal. What you probably shouldn't want to do is use the grease that came in the Chinese toolkit you got, because it's kind of a weird color and not really sure what it is. It might be fine, but why take the chance? Get yourself a good quality grease. I got this at Tractor Supply Company, extreme duty, 3% Moly grease, NLG rating of number 2. And it even has a little picture here that shows that it's good for excavators. So it's the one I chose. But you go and choose whatever high quality grease you want to choose, and I'm sure it'll be fine. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it if you like and subscribe, if you like the content that I'm putting out. This is Jeff with the Jeff Excavator channel. And until next time, are you digging or are you filling?